Welcome to the Deep Journal channel. By subscribing to our channel before moving on to our video, you can be instantly informed about the last news and comments. If you think that the hijacking in Belarus is just a propaganda or a temporary crisis, you are wrong. This incident is a pre-attack of Putin against the EU, Europe and the USA via Belarus. Some European countries, who know Moscow's dominance over Belarus, understand the seriousness of the situation and take action accordingly. Cyber attacks, mysterious microwave attacks against the CIA and diplomats, Arctic military activities, conflicts for domination in the Middle East and serious nuclear and military threats to the whole world along with the USA. However, US President Joe Biden does not seem to be aware of the incident yet. There are big games that point out that Russia has a finger behind President Biden, who will meet with Putin next month. Now he needs to wake up from his beauty sleep. Sweet months are over. US President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin are set for a potential showdown during a scheduled summit next month, as rising tensions between the countries were amplified with Belarus' aggressive move Monday to divert a Ryanair flight in order to offload a dissident.
Have you heard of the term BMV, below market value? Well, this is a below market
journalist. Biden said Sunday's diversion of the Ryanair plane in order to reportedly offload anti-Putin blogger Roman Protasevich, 26, was an affront to peace, just as Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov issued a statement calling the move an absolutely reasonable approach. Belarusian flight controllers told the pilots there was a bomb threat against a passenger jet just as it was crossing into Belarusian airspace and ordered it to land in Minsk, the Associated Press reported. The flight went on to land in Lithuania, but Protasevich was left behind. A military MiG-29 fighter jet intercepted the Ryanair flight, which caused the White House to label the flight diversion a shocking act. Putin and Biden are scheduled to hold their first summit in Geneva, Switzerland next month, U.S. officials announced just hours before the Belarus incident. Russia and the U.S. are at odds on a range of issues including cybersecurity and Russia's war with American-backed Ukraine. Despite the tension, a conciliatory meeting between Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Lavrov last week moved both countries closer to officially confirming next month's tentative summit date. Now let us examine the relations between Belarus and Moscow and whether Putin was involved or not, as well as the reactions of EU, Europe and the USA. Russia described the uproar in the US and Europe as shocking, and accused the West of having double standards. Russia has been steadily increasing its power and influence over its neighbor Belarus, but the country's leaders President Vladimir Putin and President Alexander Lukashenko are somewhat uncomfortable allies. It's arguable that any allegiance is fragile at best, and born out of necessity. For Belarus, Russia is a powerful economic and political partner and a source of support, having backed Lukashenko's leadership which is now in its 27th year. For Russia, Belarus offers an opportunity to exert economic and political influence in the region, and is a convenient bulwark against what it sees as the European encroachment upon its former territories, such as Ukraine. Putin is known to favor stability and predictability and, as such, a long-standing leader like Lukashenko in power, who can potentially be more easily influenced, is favored over regime change. Was Putin involved? Experts who follow Russia closely say Putin would have known, if not authorized, the hijacking incident. Timothy Ash, senior emerging markets strategist at Blue Bay Asset Management, noted on Monday that Lukashenko is now totally dependent on Putin for his survival in office and would not have risked his relationship with the Kremlin by undertaking such a cavalier move unless he had been first given the green light by Putin. I think if anyone doubted whether Lukashenko was all in with Putin, in his power vertical, sovereign democratic model, and indeed of Belarus's deeper integration into Russia, then I think this sends a resounding
Do not make another debt repayment until you have watched this. Most people don't.
Answer. There are no bridges left standing back to the West, and he is willing to surrender Belarus sovereignty to save his own skin. Putin's leverage over Lukashenko strengthened recently when, last September, Putin gave Belarus a $1.5 billion loan and agreed to boost trade. The move was widely seen as a gesture of support for Lukashenko following weeks of mass protests demanding his resignation after he won an election which the opposition said was rigged. Lukashenko denied this allegation. On Tuesday, the Kremlin dismissed any suggestion that Russia was involved in the forced landing of the Ryanair plane, saying such a notion was the result of anti-Russian sentiment. Speaking to reporters on a conference call, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Moscow was unduly accused of everything these days, Reuters reported, and that critics had let their hatred of Russia affect their judgment. Like Russia, Belarus is also subject to international sanctions, namely for its intimidation and repression of protesters, opposition members and journalists. Nigel Gould-Davies is former UK ambassador to Belarus and a senior fellow for Russia and Eurasia at the IISS. He told CNBC on Monday that the Ryanair incident showed that Lukashenko is now an international threat, and not just a threat to his own people. Secondly, it shows how insecure he feels himself to be if he goes to such trouble to detain a single journalist and risk international outrage and condemnation in violating international rules in this most flagrant way, he added. It shows he really doesn't care about threatening the lives of European and American citizens just to get a single person who has been publicized to the oppression of his own people. Gould-Davies said that if it was true that Belarusian KGB officials were on board the flight, as Ryanair CEO Michael O'Leary said he believed to be the case, it showed that KGB officials were active abroad. It demonstrated the international dimension of the threat that this regime presents to the countries around it, he added, noting that other countries, especially Russia, would be watching closely to see how the EU reacts. We have seen recent examples of the Russia and Belarusian security services cooperating with one another, so we need to look at that angle too. It's imperative that the EU, and I hope with American support too, will take a much stronger and more concerted stand now. Bluebay's Ash agreed that the incident presented a massive test for the EU and the West. Do they understand the threat now to Western liberal market democracy? He asked. This is not just a defensive action from Lukashenko but a full frontal attack on the EU, an EU plane, traveling between two EU capitals, forced out of the air by autocratic regime. If the West lets Lukashenko get away with this, no Western airline is safe, flying across any autocratic-run country. The skies and dissidents are not safe. President Joe Biden on Monday said the forced diversion by Belarus of a commercial passenger jet so it could arrest an opposition journalist was a direct affront to international norms, and condemned the action as an outrageous incident. Biden made the statement, and joined calls for an international investigation, as the European Union imposed sanctions against Belarus, including banning its airlines from using the airspace.
If you hate wearing glasses, don't skip this video. Having to wear glasses or contacts day in
and airports in the 27-nation bloc in reaction to Sunday's forced diversion of the Lithuania-bound Ryanair flight. The flight had originated from Greece, but was forced to land in Minsk. Biden in his statement also expressed outrage over a video statement from Roman Protasevich, who ran a popular messaging app that played a key role in helping organize massive protests against Belarus authoritarian leader President Alexander Lukashenko, that aired on Belarusian state television Monday night. In the video clip, Protasevich, 26, said his treatment in custody was maximally correct and according to law. He added that he was giving evidence to investigators about organizing mass disturbances. This outrageous incident in the video Mr. Protasevich appears to have made under duress or shameful assaults on both political dissent and the freedom of the press, Biden said in a statement. The United States joins countries around the world in calling for his release, as well as for the release of the hundreds of political prisoners who are being unjustly detained by the Lukashenko regime. Separately, the White House said that National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan on Monday spoke with Belarus opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. Sullivan told the opposition leader that the US, in coordination with the EU and other allies and partners, will hold the Lukashenko regime to account. 2 U.S. senators urged the Biden administration to prohibit U.S. airlines from entering Belarus airspace because of the incident. "We must protect innocent passengers from despotic regimes and stand in solidarity with dissidents who are being targeted," Sens. Dick Durbin, D.I.L., and Marco Rubio, R. Florida, said in a joint statement. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told Associated Press, "It constitutes a brazen affront to international peace and security by the regime. We demand an immediate international, transparent and credible investigation of this incident." She added the administration condemned the shocking act of diverting a flight to detain a journalist. European Union leaders were particularly forceful in their condemnation of the arrest and the move against the plane, which was flying between 2 of the bloc's member nations and was being operated by an airline based in Ireland, also a member. The bloc summoned Belarus ambassador to condemn the inadmissible step of the Belarusian authorities, and said in a statement the arrest was yet again another blatant attempt to silence all opposition voices in the country. President Gitana Nausėda of Lithuania urged the EU to take clear actions in order to change the pattern of behavior of this very dangerous regime, and said a previously planned EU summit on Monday would assess whether to close its airspace to Belarus carriers, declare Belarusian airspace as unsafe and expand sanctions against Lukashenko's government. German Chancellor Angela Merkel condemned the unprecedented action of the Belarusian authorities and demanded that Protasevich and his girlfriend, Sofia Sapega, be released immediately. Czech Prime Minister Andrej Babis said, "The scandalous incident in Belarus shows signs of state terrorism and it's unbelievable," while EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said it amounted to a hijacking. EU leaders have tried to bring Belarus closer to the bloc, to encourage democratic reforms and reduce the influence of Russia, but have failed so far. Ahead of their summit, some EU leaders threatened more sanctions, from scrapping landing rights in the bloc for Belarus national carrier Belavia, to exclusions from sports events. Without waiting for the EU, Latvia's Air Baltic said it would avoid Belarusian airspace, and Lithuania's government said it would instruct all flights to and from the Baltic country to avoid Belarus as well starting Tuesday. British Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said he instructed the UK Civil Aviation Authority to request airlines avoid Belarusian airspace in order to keep passengers safe. He added he was suspending the permit allowing Belavia to operate in the UK. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky ordered officials to move to cut the air link with Belarus and ban Ukrainian flights via the neighbor's airspace. You can share your comments with us and other listeners.
Clean air has never